Spirits, lovely spirits. It's your main man Solace here, the humble servant of the life. Today I want to do this interesting video called You're Only as Wise as the Questions You Ask. Now, popular men of today, they say that black men, being as though we don't know our nationality, they say we are the Africans. And you believe without any questions. So I want to lay out a series of questions that I would like everybody who is black to ask themselves. When I say black, I mean African American, which is absurd. That makes no sense. But I would like to lay out a series of questions. So if you believe you're descendants of Africa, this video is for you. If you believe you're a descendant of the Native Americans that were here already, this video is for you. Now, my black people, I want you to grasp. Have you ever in your life, now think back, have you ever been mistaken for an African? Has an African ever mistaken you for an African? Ask yourself this. Has an African ever approached you and started speaking in Swahili or an African tongue because he thought you were African and then said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know"? Because this has happened to me with many races, meaning I'm a black man and I've been mistaken for many races. I've had many different races come up to me and start speaking in their tongue. And then I say, "I don't speak that language, I'm black." And they say, "Oh, I'm sorry." And I'm sure this has happened to many other black people. But never with an African, meaning no one's ever approached me and confused me for an African, ever. Even though brothers say we are descendants of the Africans and the natives merged together, meaning they had sex and had basically us. Yet, I have never been mistaken for an African, not even by Africans. I've had Dominican people come up to me and speak Spanish, blah, 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 blah. I say, "I'm not Spanish." "Oh, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah." I've had Jamaicans, West Indians, come up to me, they start speaking in their tongue. "I'm not West Indian, I'm black." Oh. So you have to grasp. Even I've had Indian, because when I had the hair, prior to now, I had braids. And I used to straighten it to put it in a ponytail. I had Indians come up to me. I was living in the Bronx. I had Indians come up to me and ask me if I was Indian. So you have to grasp, as a black man, I have been mistaken for many races, even by those of the race. But I've never been mistaken for an African. And every black person that I personally know, they have never been mistaken for an African either. Not even by Africans. Now you have to grasp. White men had Africans with them when they came here. Why didn't they just say, "We found another group of Africans on this continent"? Why didn't they refer to the native black people of this land as that? They referred to them as Indians. Why didn't they just refer to them as another race or another group of Africans that are on this continent? Being as though brothers will tell you that the native black Americans that were here were the descendants of Africa too. So why didn't they just call them another group of Africans that are on the American continent? And it's because they didn't mistake you then for an African. Just like they don't mistake you now for one. Meaning when they seen your ancestors when they arrived on this land, they didn't mistake you for the Africans that they already had in their possession. And it's just like now. You are not mistaken for an African. Even now. And you never will be. See, you have to grasp a thing. We believe black people straighten their hair to be white or to look white. But this is not true. This is not completely true. It may have turned into that, but it didn't start as that. See, you have to grasp. The native black people that were here straightened their hair because it was already closer to that. Meaning, when a native black American woman had sex with an African, the baby's hair would have been coarse, like an African's. Now, the baby would always be left with the mother. Now, the mother's hair would be closer to straightened. Not straight as a white person, but closer to straightened. And everybody in the tribes would. Now, what do you think they would do with that child? Straighten the hair. With a hot comb. A hot comb is not a new invention. Sold. So they would straighten the baby's hair. And the baby would pass that down. For those who were in the tribe with the coarse hair, they would know that you mingled with the Africans. They would straighten their hair. Just so you can fit in. You know how we do now. We do things to fit in. So if all your friends got straight hair, put it like this. If your mother got straight hair and your father got straight hair and you don't, you'd more than likely straighten it if you could. Just to make yourself fit in with your family. So this is truly why the hair was straightened. Now, after time, of course, more mingling, people lose themselves. Then you have the white man talking to his slaves with the coarse hair, like dirt, how the hair's nappy like cotton. So then people start to straighten it for that reason, but it didn't start because of that. Your ancestors' hair was already closer to straighten. So you see my hair? It is not completely like an African's. If I wet it, it gets curly. Like literally. And most black people hair is the same way. It is not liking to an African's where it's matted and really, really coarse. Some of ours are, but not like theirs. Theirs get like beady. Like we've all, and this is not an insult because I don't care how the texture of hair is. I'm a boy, so I can care less. Most guys could care less about these things. This is woman stuff. But I'm just showing you the difference. Most Africans' hair become beadied. Like, they'll have a low haircut, and you'll see naps through the Caesar. Like, how the hell that happen? Black people hair is not like that. Our hair is easily you see how the brothers get the 360 waves so easy with just the do-rag and grease? Africans can't do that simple. Grasp. Because their hair was already close to that. So we just have to get an understanding of things. We also have to get an understanding of style. We have it in our minds that the native blacks that were here were behind the whites, meaning the whites were more advanced. And this is not true. The whites were way, way, way less advanced than the natives. Grasp. White people at the time that they arrived at the Americas, they were lighting their cities with wood and fire. So they were using fire as light. When they got to the Americas, the native blacks of this land were lighting their cities or their villages the same way we light them now, with coal, power plants. So they had actual lights, like light bulbs and energy. White men knew nothing of this, so they stole that knowledge and brought it back. They steal. You have to grasp. They stole that knowledge. Now, when they got here, the native blacks of this land had on gold teeth, gold jewelry, chinchilla boots. Now, when I say that, a lot of y'all gonna get lost like he's bugging. Grasp. They wore furs. When the white men got here, this is how they had on. The Indian boots are not the Indian boots you see in the store where they're suede with. They made the real deal. So theirs was really made out of bear's fur, chinchilla fur. We not told they wasn't purchasing this stuff. They was hunting it, catching it, killing it. They had knowledge on how to make it. So when the white man got there, they had on furs and stuff. Fur boots. The same way you see women dressing now that have money and they may have on the chinchilla boots with the chinchilla scarf. The natives was doing that already. They had on the wool, they had the suede scarves on, but they wasn't suede like leather. But you know, real leather's like suede. So when you see them with the suede sweaters on, with the feathers in it, this is where the fashion business came from. When the whites got here and seen how they was dressing, white people didn't wear furs and shit. Now grasp. Everyone wore animal furs to keep warm in cold areas. Grasp that. I'm not saying they didn't do that. But they didn't do it in a fashion sense. The natives here were dressing in a fashion sense. It wasn't about staying warm. They were fly. They would throw the feather. So you know it was a technique. Not a technique, but on purpose. They would do things like throw feathers in it. Wear gold. So it was about fashion. They was fly. Now, the image you have is of slaves. Motherfuckers looking bad. But that's not how they looked when the white man got here. They was way past on. They had way more knowledge and more game on the life than the white man. The way they dressed. The materials they used to make their clothing. White men were using cotton. Silks. They were using animal hides. So when you see their shirts were so thick and looked suede, and just the material was just way more better, their outfit could last for years because it was made out of the actual animal's hide. Their boots was like chinchillas and squirrels and bears' fur. So they had things of quality. And this is why, and then the white man seen that, and this is where the business of that came from. Where people buy furs and so on and so forth. So you have to grasp who you truly are descendants of. Now, Africans of today, they go with this new idea that we are Africans. And this is only because they desperately need help. And I'm not against the Africans. They're like cousins. So it's not a problem. I'm not saying anything of that nature. I'm just trying to give the true knowledge where you can grasp it and understand it and make sense. Because I know for some of you, when they say you're a descendant of Africa, and it's to you like that makes no sense. What about the black people that were here? Well, those are your descendants. And then the mixing and the mingling brought about the confusion. So you were never brought here as a slave, or your ancestors were never brought here as a slave. You and your ancestors were free. You are enslaved because lack of knowledge of which black group you came from. So us as a race, over the mixing and mingling of time, the descendants begin to not know which group of blacks they came from. The natives are the Africans. And then you had the natives mixing and mingling mostly with the whites. So our ancestors were mainly mixing and mingling with the whites because the whites were free and they were also. So grasp that. Very few of them mixed and mingled with the blacks. This is why a lot of us have white people blood in us, if you do your DNA shit. So you have to grasp. The natives begin to look white. Your ancestors begin to look white, and the ones that mingled with the blacks, or with the Africans, begin to look like who you have as African Americans. And we begin to get confused from which black race we initially came from. Which would have been the black natives of this land that they mistaken for Indians. So you have to grasp, man, this is all simple. Watch my old slave videos. I have a bunch of them. Now, for my Moor brothers, I want y'all to understand, because a lot of people say, I'm a Moor, that's my nationality. A Moor is not a nationality. It is a group of diverse people. It is like the Masons, the Illuminati, the UN, the Bilderberg Group. It is a group of people. It has always been this. This is why you see many different types or races of people with the more red thimble graduation style hat on. The reason you see this, you may see an Arab with it on, an African, a white man. You like, why so many people wear these more things? Even back in the day when you're looking at different drawings and pictures of maybe the 1800s, same thing. Different races wearing that. And that is because that was a group, like a gang or an organization. It is not a nationality. Please grasp that. That is so ignorant for a person to say. My nationality is a Moor. That is like someone saying, my nationality is Islam. The Nation of Islam is not a nationality. It is a group of people. But fools in the future will say, I am a descendant of the Islam. The same way people of now say, I am a descendant of the Moors. What are you talking about? Doesn't matter. It's your main man, Solace.